I almost got murdered, essentially.
You know what's like nice about the podcast is like we're always in the gym and like you get to know people, but it's kind of like you don't really like get a chance to chat to them too much.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like I vaguely know your story.
Yeah.
But I don't actually know much details at all.
Yeah.
So like I was kind of curious to find out like where did you grow up? Where were you born? I know nothing about England. So like where does this accent come from?
Do you know where your girlfriend is at the moment?
She's in London. But I have...
It's completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Really family out.
She's this, yeah.
So she's in London.
She's in London. Are you from London?
I'm not from London.
Where are you from?
No, I'm from a place called Bristol.
So tell me about Bristol. Like, it's like there's no mental image for me. Like, what's Bristol like?
Bristol is probably one of the more famous cities in England, actually. So we gave the world things like Massive Attack. Drum and bass was arguably invented in Bristol. Yeah, and I know you like to party, George. So, so that's right up your alley. Banksy is from Bristol.
Damn.
We're a really vibrant cultural city. It's about 2.5 hours west of London, southwest, really close to Wales. And it's just kind of exploded now at the moment. Everyone's kind of moaning about how the house prices have gone up. Because apparently during COVID, all the Londoners moved to Bristol. But really, it's a harbour town like Sydney, so just kind of upgraded in that respect. And full of vibrant arts, nightlife. Anything you want to do in Bristol at any night, you can do it. It's a fantastic city. I'm very proud to be from Bristol.
Wow, there you go.
Although I wouldn't want to live there again.
Really? Interesting. So what was growing up in Bristol like? Like how would you sort of describe your early days? Like just briefly, you don't have to go into too much detail, but just briefly, what was growing up like in Bristol?
It's a good question. It's like I was never like a tearaway or anything. I think that just an average kind of kid growing up. Like my mum and dad were great. I didn't come from like a broken home or anything. And at the same time, Bristol, especially going back 30 odd years now, it was rough around the edges. And I grew up in a housing estate, which not the worst. Definitely not full of mansions or anything either. We were dead set in the middle, but I know it was back in the days when kids would go out. When we'd ride bikes. iPads were a distant like twinkle in someone's eye, and so I used to go out. I used to get in a lot of trouble, but not like criminal. More like mischievous, cheeky kids. So there was a lot of like kind of silliness involved. But I was never like in the back of a police wagon the whole time. But I grew up real inner city. So that was kind of our world, was like we'd go into town and chuck eggs at cars and stuff like that, and then we didn't really have a huge amount of like green open spaces to go. Any field we had near us would be taken over by other kids, like small povo kids, let's be honest, on like stolen mopeds, and they tear up all the fields and stuff. So we didn't really have any like pristine, lovely places to like play. It was very geared towards inner city rat style. It was fun. I wouldn't have changed it for the world.
So like quite like grungy.
Big grungy.
Like, because like obviously if there's like a big music scene there, it's probably like socio-economic circumstance probably isn't the best.
I think that's what creativity is born out of, isn't it? There's a lot of struggle. That's where the greatest artists come from. That's for sure. There's always something going on. Whether it be something music related or like a street festival or something like that. So it was really, it wasn't boring by any means.
What would, like growing up, what concerts like stood out in your mind? Like you mentioned Massive Attack. And you might, like I've gone through like a phase. Have you listened to any Massive Attack?
No, I haven't.
You've definitely heard their music.
I'll have to check
But
them
it would
out.
be like from like the House. Remember that TV show House?
Yeah.
Is that what it was called? The Doctor?
Yeah,
It would be
I
like the intro music to that. Like
yeah, that
it's
was
like a very. It's
Really?
Like, these guys are like amazing. Like
Worldwide.
I went through. What's it called? It's called like trip hop,
Trip
right?
hop, yeah.
I went through like a trip hop phase where I like had like a deep dive, and it's a wild rabbit hole to go down. It's so great, man. Did you see any of these guys live?
I did not. I wasn't a huge music buff. I went through my little skater phase as maybe. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you?
No,
You were never a skater.
I mean, I wanted to, but I had strict parents that didn't let me skate. But that's a different story.
Do you have any tricks, or you just?
No, I landed one kickflip in my
shit,
entire
man.
career.
That's
Yeah.
mad.
This guy came on here to brag.
guy-
Yeah.
This guy can do a kickflip. I never did a kickflip. I was a longboard kid.
Oh, you were a longboarder. Oh, you're Aussie though, isn't it? Yeah, that makes sense. No, I just used to pose. We hung around with some of the pro skaters in the local Bristol scene, so I just used to take my board and pretend like I was as good as them, and always find excuses to not do the stair circle. Not today, boys. So.
So nothing's changed.
Nothing's
has changed.
Yeah, did you just see?
But in terms of concerts, like that was with the skater scene came bands like CKY, and I was a big like Jackass kid growing up.
Wow.
So all of that kind of skate grunge music that went with it. I went and saw those. Bristol was always on the map for big artists to come, and still is.
Yeah.
You know, you don't really get away with doing a music tour and not playing Bristol. So we were really spoiled. Probably should have taken. There's bands now where I go like, fuck, I should have saw them when they were tight. Yeah, and now they're huge. Like Kasabian, for example. Me and the missus just bought tickets to Kasabian next year in Sydney. Fucking $100 odd. Whereas I could have saw them coming up for like £4 in Bristol. It would have been amazing, and then I could have that bragging moment where I saw them before they were big.
Wow.
Original fan.
Yeah.
That's wild. And so moving up sort of through your life, you mentioned at some stage you did art school or something, or?
I did. I'm an art school dropout.
Was this still in Bristol?
Yes, this was in Bristol. So I did Roman Catholic primary school, secondary school, and college. There's no better way to promote your religion than force a kid to do it. So I'm obviously not very religious these days, and I think even you guys know that about me. I'm sure you can assume, and then after college, I didn't know what to do. I really liked. I'd actually had a graphic design teacher who I really gelled with. You know, those one teachers at school that really speak to you.
Everyone's got one.
Yeah,
everyone's got one.
And there's all of the dicks. Like I didn't get on very well. I was too cheeky at school. I was always in trouble. But this guy kind of nurtured it. His name's Simeon. He was a lovely bloke, and he's not dead. Still is a lovely bloke.
He's a piece of shit now. Fuck that guy. Sorry, dude.
He got me into graphic design, and the University of Bristol was quite famed for their arts scene, and it's quite high ranking on the arts scene. As you had two unis, Bristol Uni, very posh. All the posh kids went. That was where they'd study, even though they had a job locked in for daddy anyway. And then there was like the rest of us, the plebs, went to UE, University of the West of England, and I did what they call Art Foundation. So it was a year where you do everything. Our campus was in this middle of this bloody beautiful forest on the outskirts of Bristol with like wild deer and gorgeous trees and
This is crazy.
all we did was smoke weed and drink beer, which was brilliant. Yeah, in the middle of like Jurassic Park.
That's wild.
Did a bit of art every now and again, and that was just so much fun that I took a year off, and then went to uni and carried on doing art, but specialised in graphic design, and that was down in Bournemouth.
Wow.
Yeah, a little seaside
What's
town.
your tool of choice? Like Photoshop for?
Yes, InDesign was my thing. I never got on hugely. Photoshop was confusing back then and extremely daunting. I really liked InDesign because I like layout. I like designing magazines and posters and stuff. So it was Illustrator and InDesign, which I really enjoyed. Yeah.
2 questions. Do you have any like of your design work that you're sort of proud of that you still have at home and like saved on a hard drive somewhere? Or?
Yeah.
I'd love to like sort of just have this stuff pop up
Jamie,
on the screen.
pull it up on screen.
Yeah.
I'm Jamie. I'll do it later.
We need a Jamie.
I'm
You're
Jamie.
Jamie. There's a dead Instagram, and then there's like sporadically through my Facebook. I definitely put some up.
Yeah.
It is something that I wish I kind of had in one place. So I think that's something I might like to do because I am still proud of it. I think just because I got so disenfranchised with the whole thing throughout uni, I never really bothered to collate it. But back then, before like my soul had been destroyed by academia and awful teachers and stuff like that, I was flying, man. Me and my mate John, who is dead, rest his soul, bless him. We had the best night ever once because we were so into like graffiti and Banksy especially, and this was during that year at art school in Bristol still, and he owned a pub, or his dad owned a pub at least, and we did this. We were both like heartbroken at the time, as you are when you're 19, right? It's just the typical angst. So we planned on, there was this blank billboard near his house, and we thought, we'll do a big stencil piece on here, and we called it Unrequited Love. Oh, I know.
Amazing.
And we got our mates to pose, so it was like four blokes. It was me, and I was like reaching towards this girl, my mate Rowena, who posed for us, and then I was being pulled back by like chains, and then we converted it into a stencil the size of like half a billboard, and we went to his pub to do it. We had all this cardboard, we laid it all out, and we were just drinking Guinnesses from about 3 in the afternoon, and we finished at about 2 a.m. Which was the plan, because like it's dark, right? And then we go out. We just had a fucking skinful throughout the whole day cutting this thing out that I was planning on driving. Yeah. And then I obviously couldn't. I could barely stand up. So we had to call our mate Jason, who then came and picked us up, took us to the billboard, and we like plastered it up. And then a big bus full of Chinese tourists drove past and were like taking pictures of us all spraying it. Yeah. It was amazing. And then a couple of weeks later, we saw a documentary crew from Japan, funnily enough, filming Banksy pieces in Bristol. Yeah. So we, again, drunk. This will be a theme in my stories. Again, drunk, we went up and we're like, hey, what you doing? And they told us they're making a documentary on Banksy in Bristol. And they're like, do you know of any other pieces that we should go and film? Well, funnily enough, he just threw up a new one and we sent them to our piece. And then we did a little talking head to the camera to these interviewers about Banksy. And me and my mate John and our one piece of graffiti might be out there on a Japanese documentary somewhere.
Yeah. Tried to find it?
No, I know.
We're gonna find it.
We'll find it.
Me and George will find it.
Yeah, do your thing. That would be so good. That would make my day to see that. Actually.
So, I guess the obvious question is, since you're a Bristol native, are you Banksy?
I was going to ask this.
And if you're not, tell us who Banksy is. Do you know who he is?
Me personally, no.
Yeah. Personally,
no. There's ever since I was a kid, there were rumors rolling around, and funnily enough, the name has stuck throughout the years. I think it's a guy called.
Name drop. We can bleep that out.
We can bleep that out. They might come find me.
I was going to ask, is it like it's one of these 3 guys, or is it like it's probably this guy?
It's probably that guy. Okay. Yeah. No, I think it's one of those open secrets now or something. But yeah, it was always shrouded in mystery before he was as big as he is now. But no, I am not Banksy. Okay. I wish I was Banksy.
That's exactly what Banksy would say.
That's what he would say.
That's exactly.
He would deflect it off to some guy called. That's what I would do if I was Banksy.
All right.
Classic playbook.
Get you to do a piece of art for us later.
Yeah.
So you lived in Bristol until you moved to Australia?
No, I lived in Bristol till I went to university in Bournemouth, a little seaside beach town. Yeah, that was when I was about 20.
Right.
I lived in Bournemouth till I was about 24.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Sydney. Yeah,
right.
In about 2012, I believe it was.
And what made you move to Sydney?
Well, That's a fun story, George.
Does that involve drinking?
It does. It does involve drinking. How did you know?
It's my job. We have to know these things.
So I almost got murdered, essentially.
Tell us more.
So there's just trying to think of. I should have thought about this last night in terms of what story, what version of the story to tell. Yeah. Is my mum going to watch this?
This will just be a long beep.
And that's how it happened. Bro, that's the craziest story I've ever heard. George, I've never heard a story like that in my life.
And we never will again. I've told this story a million times on stage and stuff like that for like some mental health stuff that I've done before. So it's a story I've told heaps. And it's a fucking good story, so I'm more than happy to. But yeah, essentially, we'd finish uni. I'd finish uni. I had my girlfriend at the time. I won't name her, bless her. She's very happy now. And the last thing I need to do is drag her name through shit. So my university girlfriend at the time, and I'd finished uni, but she was doing her final year, so I stayed in Bournemouth. And then the plan was to go somewhere, usually London, once you graduate. And I was working hospitality at the time, and I had done for a long time. The typical art school dropout story. Can't make a creative degree happen, so I'll go serve beers instead. And I love drinking beers as well, if you hadn't guessed that by this time.
I had a hunch.
Yeah. So I was happy as Larry, and until we split up. So it was like my first heartbreak, you know, real heartbreak, you know, like I had a girlfriend when I was 15. Yeah. And of course when she dumped me, I was like, that was the end of the world. But this was different. I was an adult now, so it kind of hurt a lot more. Yeah. So like any kind of young man does, really healthy coping mechanisms. I just drank a load of beer, did a load of drugs to help me cope with the heartbreak. So I was just on a tear, right? So we were out every night. I managed a nightclub at the time called Alika. Fuck, it was awful. And one night when I was on this kind of tear, it was my night off. So me and the boys were like, well, let's go down to the club you manage, Alika, we'll have another night out. I was like, well, funnily enough, I'm more than up for that. So we went down to this bar, and we were getting on it, and this girl who I knew who worked with us kind of came in on her night off as well, and I thought, what a perfect. We always had a bit of like flirtatiousness, bit of tension. So I thought, what better opportunity to kind of get back on that horse and you know and get back into the swing of things as a bloke. So I'll give it a go. So we're hanging out, and in the end, she's like, "Come on, let's go back to mine, and we'll have a few more drinks at my flat." Well, that's brilliant. So we're in the centre of Bournemouth. This is a really quaint little seaside town full of old people and students, essentially. Nothing bad has ever happened in Bournemouth. So we go back to her flat. There's a bunch of us around, and then the last thing I remember was doing a line of methadone, which was the legal drug at the time. It took England by storm.
What does it do? Sorry, what is
methadone? So eerily similar to methadone, which will come up in the story in terms of name. But it was this white powder that they marketed as plant food. So it was legal to buy, just completely legal. But it was like cocaine and ecstasy in one go. Oh. And it just swept the entirety of England for about a year. Really fucked people up. Real nasty stuff. Wow. And also amazing. Yeah. So I remember having a line of methadone, a swig of my Heineken, and a toke of this giant spliff.
What a combo.
I know. And then I woke up, and there were doctors and nurses over me. And then I looked down and I didn't have a top on. I was covered in blood. My pants were kind of on, but like half ripped and all kinds of fucked up. I was bleeding out of my ears. And I looked over and the girl I was with was in a dressing gown in the bed next to me with her leg up in some kind of weird sling thing. And all the doctors and stuff were like, Sam, like really gentle. So just coming round and I tried to speak. I tried to say what happened, but I couldn't even speak. I was like, what happened? And the doctors or the nurses was like, you've been in a pretty serious accident or something really serious has happened to you. Like, you're okay.
Yeah.
You're okay. You just need to know you're in hospital. You're safe now. I was just so confused and like still drunk when I woke up. So it turns out that after my last memory, we went to her bedroom and she was toddling about getting ready and I was in her bed just kind of like half asleep, just kind of like this. And we still don't know to this day, but somehow an ex-boyfriend of hers got wind that she went home with me.
Yeah.
Came to the flat, bust in through the flat, grabbed a golf club and beat the shit out of me.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So the golf club thing, he was never charged with a weapon. So it's up in the air whether it actually happened or not. However, during my time speaking to the witnesses and the cops, they all said like, yeah, he beat the fuck out of you with a golf club. Essentially, he broke my jaw in like 3 places, so it was hanging off the rest of my skull.
Jesus Christ.
There was no other hits on my body. It was just my head. So I saw these giant welts. I looked like Quagmire from my jaw hanging off, bleeding out my ears. She was an absolute legend and jumped on him to stop him. She broke her leg in the process. Her other housemates heard the commotion, obviously, and eventually they ended up getting it off my lifeless body. So he'd come in and just smack me while I was in bed.
Wow.
I fell out, and then he just wouldn't stop, man, until they all pulled him off. And then he fucking ran away like a little weasel he is. And yeah, so he if it wasn't for like the girl and her housemates and that, they didn't get him off me, like he would have killed me like at that point. So it was like massive head trauma. I had to go through like multiple, I was in hospital for a good month or 2, I believe. It's all very hazy. But they had to like surgically reattach my jaw to the rest of my skull. I've still to this day got like all metal. So I've got a big scar kind of down here where they put the metal plates and stuff in. So yeah, that happened. And then I waited around. He went on the run for near enough about a year or so, almost. And then they found him up in the north of England.
Yeah.
And then I watched him get arrested, go to jail. I got a nice bit of criminal compensation from the government.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was moving to Australia. He said, do you want to come? So yeah, let's go. At that point in my life, I was like, there's nothing here for me anymore.
Yeah.
So let's just go to Australia. And then that was like 12 years ago. The rest is kind of history now.
Wow. That's intense, man.
How old were you? Sorry, how old were you?
So I think when this happened to me, I must have been 24.
Okay.
I'm 36 now, 37 next month. So yeah, we're going back a little while.
Yeah.
That's so young.
So I was young.
That's so young.
I was a kid, man.
Yeah, exactly. Like you didn't feel like a kid at that age, but
No,
definitely
at
are,
the time. But upon reflection, yeah, I was just a baby. Like having something so incredibly violent happen to you happened to me was yeah, it changed everything.
Yeah.
It changed everything for me.
And it's such an odd circumstance where you were clearly just, on a bed, a completely different mind state, and then this is just thrust upon you. Depending on how much you want to speak about it, but you've mentioned in passing to me that I'm assuming this is sort of where you've dealt with PTSD and things like that.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about your experience with PTSD and how that manifested? What were the early signs that maybe you recognized or didn't recognize?
No, it's a brilliant question, and something that that's become clearer when looking back on it. So I recovered really well, and I feel like at the time, in terms of like my mind recovering, I felt like I was okay. I was in a brand new country, whole new heap of experiences to do, new friends to make. So I didn't really, what's the word, cognitively,
consciously.
Consciously, I wasn't kind of consciously aware of anything wrong, let's say. Until I went and did my farm work for my second year visa.
Yeah.
And we were drinking.
That old chestnut.
Drinking a load of goon because we were all broke backpackers on this farm in the middle of Whoop Whoop up towards Queensland. So we were maybe a sack and a half of goon into this night, and a friend of mine, like a mate who I'd met there, I can't remember his name now, but he got, as boys do, it gets a little bit roughhousery and everyone's sloppy because we've all got a bunch of fruity Lexia and no food in our stomachs.
Yeah.
And just so playfully, just the tiniest little play, he just kind of went like that on me, just like, I can't even remember the context.
Yeah.
But all I remember is him just gently touching my cheek like that, as a real, no malice behind it at all.
Yeah.
And I, the cliche, I saw red. I had no idea what came over me. It's really hard to describe, but I'd had no control over what I was doing, but something just clicked or changed or switched in me. And I grabbed him and I had him up against the wall, and I was about to just start smacking him. And I couldn't stop myself. And I managed to, I kind of came to, and I saw he was so confused and like, what are you doing, man? So I kind of put him down, and then I couldn't understand why I did that. So I ran away into the fields, and just started crying because I didn't know, that's never happened to me before. I'm normally like a really calm, easygoing dude. So for something to trip me up like that was really scary.
Yeah.
So anyone who kind of went, that was like the first incident of I think something's a bit wrong here. And since then, or after that moment, I couldn't really ever let anyone near my face, not even people I really loved. Anyone who went near my face, just this anger would boil up, and I couldn't kind of control my actions. Sleep, I just couldn't sleep, so I medicated with alcohol. That was when alcohol stopped becoming fun for me, and I started drinking to cope without kind of really realizing the shift.
Yeah.
So I'd drink to sleep and to help the anger.
Yeah.
And then just that classic loud noises piece. Yeah. Even to this day, I'm not great with loud bangs and stuff like that. It kind of sets me off, and I get really scared. So yeah, I lived with that, and it was only steadily getting worse. The drinking just made all of it worse over a period of 10 years or something like that. Yeah. So that was kind of my first experience of I think something's wrong, but I never got help for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then other shit happened in my life which compounded the trauma of that. And then over a period of time, and then it was only when I really hit kind of rock bottom did I go and find some help. And that was when I learned okay, a doctor told me you have PTSD, you've got this kind of a panic disorder as well. I became really claustrophobic as well, which is really weird. I was never a claustrophobic person, but any tight spaces. I got locked in my own flat once, which was a tiny little room in the city, and my door locked on itself, and I fucking freaked out. I couldn't handle it. I was screaming, trying to break it down. And that was just ways that I'd never acted like that before. So it was super confusing, and yeah, like really scary.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. And thanks so much for like speaking honestly about that, man. I think it really helps people identify. I mean, if someone else is hearing this, it might not stop them from experiencing similar things, but I think it may help them identify those things a little bit earlier, right? 'Cause when you're in it, it's kind of hard to identify that and be conscious of it if you've never experienced it before.
100%. Yeah.
I'll just sort of, we can go through so many rabbit holes here, and there's so much to talk. Definitely. We could do probably a million podcasts with you.
Yeah, we could be here for
so this is just part one. But I just want to sort of pivot to, you mentioned something about sort of jiu-jitsu being something that's been one of the more helpful things in terms of dealing with PTSD.
Yeah.
Can you sort of tell me a little bit about why you actually started jiu-jitsu in the first place and what your experience was?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing pretty much 2 years on the dot. I've been training jiu-jitsu, and
you're still so early on.
Such a baby.
Wow,
It was longer for some reason.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a very good thing.
I'll take that.
That's a very good thing.
Thanks, boys.
One of my guys.
Well, I mean, I've got two of the greatest coaches right next to me.
I mean, it's not lying. You're not wrong.
We are the best coaches in the world.
But I didn't start with you boys, did I? I've been doing it for about a year till I met you guys and joined Partizan. So I won't go too deep into that area, but that's a fun side of my life as well. But I started doing jiu-jitsu in a garage with a bunch of my mates and a bloke who was like the teacher. Like so, happy to go into that another time. But yeah, so I did taekwondo growing up. So combat sports weren't foreign to me by any means. I really enjoyed them. Massive Bruce Lee fan growing up and a Jackie Chan fan. Loved it. Got my black belt when I was like 16. So these were registered lethal weapons in England. Well, less these, more my feet. Says he who lost every tournament he ever entered in the first round, and my poor parents spent so much money driving me 2 hours to lose in a minute. So combat sports weren't foreign to me at all. And I was a little shit growing up, so I got into a few fights and stuff throughout my uni days and that. So like, what I'm trying to say is I wasn't completely green to anything that involved combat with another man. And my mate Dennett, he's a brown belt, I believe, a classic Gracie brown belt. And I'd known him for a year or two at this point, and he'd always said about how good jiu-jitsu was for him. We should do it one day. And in the end, he got this small group of us together and we started training. And that was when all this PTSD shit started coming up again, man. I hadn't had a fight or anything since the day of my assault. Always avoided it since then. And to have another grown man all of a sudden on top of me, not at distance where you can kind of strike and throw some light punches and kicks, having a bloke all up in my shit, breathing heavy and sweating on me and stuff, like that would trigger my PTSD. I get really scared, I get really angry, and I get really claustrophobic. Being mounted by another bloke was the worst thing. That it was horrible. So what jiu-jitsu really did for me was like, I got to figure it out. This dude's not just going to get off me if I ask him nicely. That's not the point of the game. The game is to figure this out, escape, and then hopefully get my own thing going. So to spend time day after day, week after week, just getting smushed by all these people, just forced me to really address my reactions and stuff like that, and what actions I take when I'm in these compromised positions. So like being cross-faced the shit out of, and it was horrible. So what I did was I got the boys who I really trusted in that little group, I just got them to put me in these awful positions for like minutes. And because I trusted, they were like my mates, so I could feel all of that shit come up, but tell myself I'm safe, it's okay. Like I'm in a controlled environment, nothing bad's gonna happen to me. Like he's not gonna hurt me. then, yeah, so that's kind of what jiu-jitsu did for me, was just kind of trial by fire in the way of like, it just threw me into this world where I'm going to have a dude that's potentially, especially in Partizan, bigger than me, which is really annoying.
What are you trying to say about the Partizan?
They're all
Kippy.
Units.
Kippy, you're listening to this right now.
So yeah, it really forced me into these horrible positions where I get claustrophobic, I get really angry, and I'd like start panicking. And I'd have panic attacks on the mat.
Wow.
And then through repetition and learning, right, well, I need to learn how to get out of this fucking position.
Yep.
And then it just eventually started, like, as it does with everyone, I guess. And then it wasn't long before I love it. I absolutely love it. And now I spent 6 minutes the other day under Lachlan's knee on my neck.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Shout out Lachlan.
Shout out Lachlan.
He's the worst.
He's the best and the worst, isn't he? And like to come from where I used to
That's huge.
it is.
That's massive.
Panic attacks underneath someone to then taking 6 minutes of Lockie's cop jitsu was it's huge.
Just to bring you back to the first session of jiu-jitsu, because that could have gone one of two ways. You could have been like, I absolutely hate this.
Yeah.
I'm never doing this ever again, and I'm avoiding these situations.
Yeah.
Or you took the path that you did of saying, this could be really helpful for me. What was that? Was that a conscious shift to be like, this is something that could really help me? Did you feel like that from the first session to make you come and do the second session, or how did that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, actually. I do remember sitting down and thinking about it after the first session or two, when essentially I just used to run away, because they weren't teaching us anything. We just used to roll.
Yeah, you were in a garage, right?
Yeah, it was in a garage. They had mats, so it was just like, all right, boys, just roll. So we didn't know anything. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like reverse butt scooting. I was just running away from everyone because I didn't know what to do. And yeah, after a couple of sessions when I'd had these panic attacks and these horrible like PTSD episodes, I do remember thinking like, because I promised my mate Dinus, I was like, fine, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, this isn't me, man. Take me back to kind of Taekwondo. Or I think it lit something inside me which I was lacking for a while because I hadn't done any martial arts. I'd stopped rugby a long time ago. So it lit something in me where I was like, okay, it's this kind of realm where I need to be. I just don't know if this is it, because this is terrifying at the moment. And I think what I did was I looked up some Henna Gracie stuff on YouTube, and all of a sudden there's this super charismatic Brazilian American dude who's telling me that it's all going to be okay and that I can do this and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I learned a mount escape. And then I think I tried it the next week and it fucking worked. Yeah. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And then I could start seeing like where I actually could fit into this and turn the game into something a little bit more that favors me. And then all of a sudden I was on top of someone, and that was like, oh, I like this bit.
This is much more fun when I'm the attacker.
So much better.
Not getting squashed.
Yeah. So I think, I almost didn't. I think I committed to like a month with my mate. I was like, hey, look, I'll do a month with you. But then about halfway through that, when I actually figured out a couple of techniques and I saw it work, I was like, I think this is the one. This is where I need to be.
That's wild.
That's amazing. And that's why you started Jiu-Jitsu. Have the reasons sort of changed, or have you seen more benefits, or has that evolved for you over time?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what makes Jiu-Jitsu so special in my limited experience of it is A, the culture. And I think kind of what you boys have created here is probably the most important thing to me, and something that I didn't realize would be the most important thing to me, actually, is to be in a room with a bunch of people that I'm really happy to like call my friends. And then we get to choke the shit out of each other for an hour or so and then chat. And like we go out, we do these like events and stuff like that, watch the UFC together. So what changed from being able to get over some really like tough physical and mental things has now evolved into, like, I think you mentioned on the Johnny Yaps podcast, being at a third place for people. And that's exactly sums up how I feel about this gym in particular as well, is this really is my happy place, like my home life is awesome. I've got an amazing partner. Work, less
work in progress.
Less said about that, the better. And then I have this space where I can calm all of that anxiety that I feel day to day. Is quiet for those 2 hours. It's probably the only space where I'm not overthinking things. Another gift that the lovely scumbag left me with was crazy anxiety. So it's the only space where my mind is quiet. And it's just, I need to solve this problem.
Yes.
It's very difficult to think about other things when someone might rip your leg off.
Yeah, forced mindfulness, I like to call it.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely evolved into more of a, not just good for my body. I mean, arguably it's not that good
questionable,
for my body. Yeah, the gentle art? No.
You train with Lachlan.
Lachlan didn't get that memo.
Just skip that memo. Knee on neck, it's not too gentle.
That's not gentle.
Compared to getting your head kicked in for a while.
Yeah. Swings and roundabouts.
Everything's relative, I guess.
Yeah. But then also, I've got a kind of addictive personality. I've definitely got like addictive traits in me. So where I used to be like kind of addicted to alcohol, when I knocked that on the head about 5 years ago now, there was something that needed to fill that gap. You hear a lot about it with addiction. Like addicts need something to fill that hole that was left by whatever vice it was that they've hopefully left behind. Mine was alcohol, so I needed something to get into, and what's more autistic and like hyper focused than something like this.
Yeah.
It's
there's nothing more
nothing like
We're at the end of the spectrum, my friends. Welcome.
So yeah, being able to you learn a counter, and then there's a counter to that counter, and then you can go out and like the journey going to find that move that will get you better. So next time Kippy tries to fucking get you with it, you can give it a go, and then that doesn't work. Because Kippy's amazing and he still beats you up, and it's just that.
Guy.
I mean, you guys know, right? I was preaching to the choir.
No, I'm just Kippy just annoys me. He's great at jiu-jitsu, charismatic, good looking.
He greases.
He's a greaser.
Yeah. He can't have everything.
He is horrendously good looking, isn't he?
Leave something for us. No, that's amazing. I don't know if you have any other questions. I've got one more for Sam, but just to sort of end the podcast, it's almost 10 o'clock, I think, and we'll be having people come through soon.
We will.
And we can obviously do a part 2 with you, I'm sure, up to 10 parts. But
if the people want it, if you guys want
comment
it.
down
Comment,
below.
like, follow, subscribe. Send me an email. Tell me you want Sam back on the podcast, and I'll make it happen.
That's called action, I like that.
I just sort of wanted to end the podcast with, you mentioned to me that you might be starting a blog soon. So I just wanted to briefly hear your vision of what this blog would be. Who's that for? What's your sort of idea with that?
Thanks for bringing it up, man. So this, I probably came up with this idea about 20 hours ago. I want to start a blog, so I've made a Substack. Nice. It's going to be warriorfunk.substack.com. And I've always loved writing, and I feel like right now I've got my lovely jiu-jitsu, I love it here, but there's something out, and I feel like I needed another outlet to be creative.
Yes.
And I've always loved writing, and I've always said for years and years I should write more. I'm going to write something. I'm going to do something, whether it be a book or just a journal or something like that. So like I said to you last night, you two putting yourselves out there more recently has really inspired me. So I'm going to, I've started this blog, and it's just going to be I want it to organically figure itself out as I go through it. But the first essay article thing I'm writing is going to be my experience with imposter syndrome. I came here as a blue belt from my sham of a coach, original.
Part 2. Part 2.
And I got absolutely destroyed at this gym by everyone. So, and it's something that obviously everyone goes through. It's not just limited to the blue belt imposter syndrome, but I like telling stories as well. I feel like that's one of my skill sets is I can tell a good story. So I'm really, really excited to just write about my experiences. I'll write about kind of being in a cult, my PTSD, some other kind of wacky stories from my drinking days. And yeah, so I'm just going to start writing, and no money involved. I don't really plan on monetizing it anytime soon.
I'm so excited to read that.
Yeah.
Honestly, genuinely, please, like, I know you're saying it now, so you have to do it.
Yes,
right?
so I'm putting it out there, so I do.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, please join. I'll send you a link, and you maybe pop it in the description box or something.
Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for sharing all this. This was like,
this is amazing.
Awesome. This was incredible. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you being so open with your experiences, because I had no fucking idea, literally zero idea about any of that.
Yeah.
So this was awesome. This was I really appreciate it.
This is what podcasts are made for.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
This has been super fun. Thank you so much, boys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just got to do one more clap.
3, 2, 1.